What's going on, YouTube? Alright, so for the first time I'm going to actually try doing this video with my phone as opposed to my camera. We're going to see how the quality turns out. Okay guys, so this is a video I've been really looking forward to doing for the past few weeks because I told myself I was going to make sure I planned ahead before I did this vid. This is going to be my Banlist prediction / wish list vid. The reason why, I would like to think, though, I tried to be as objective as I can and actually make predictions that I think Konami's going to make, while also including, stuff that I obviously do want to happen. So, I did try to keep a limit to an extent on how magree cards I put in each section. To be honest, as much as I do agree with people who say the people from ARG are shouldn't be hitting so many cards, they do have a lot of good points with some of the cards they're hitting. Is it unrealistic to expect Konami to hit so many cards? No, but I wouldn't, I wasn't gonna, I decided not to limit myself too much in terms of how many cards I wanted to mention. So this is going to be a two-part video. Part 1 is going to be discussing the banned and limited cards because, quite frankly, I think the second part is going to be more enjoyable for me because I'm going to be talking about the stuff that I sort of want to happen, as well as, stuff that's just I think it's more fun to talk about the stuff that gets unrestricted, because those are the cards that really, those are the decisions that really open up, most of the time, they'll open up new decks to be played, or they'll just breathe new life into decks. Yeah, I just kind of like that discussion, and you'll see what I'm talking about when you see the cards I mentioned in that vid. Okay, so without wasting any more time, let's go to this discussion. So, in terms of banned cards, I have 5 cards. This is the least amount that I'm doing for any of the sections. It's only 5 because there are a bunch of cards I would like to see banned personally. But I decided to remain within reason on the 5 cards that I think deserve to be banned more than anything else. I'm going to start with the 2 most obvious cards that probably everybody will agree should be banned: Monster Reborn and Pot of Avarice. Monster Reborn and Pot of Avarice kind of fall under the same category of cards that are ridiculous top decks, give you way too much advantage in the type of effects they have, and they're just outright unfairly powerful cards. Reborn, the really big problem, though, with having Reborn around, though, is also the fact that Call's at 3. There's no reason why Reborn should be around if we have Call at 3. I don't get that. But, of course, Reborn's more powerful because you can use it immediately when you draw it, and you can special summon something from your opponent's graveyard, which can be so critical sometimes. I'm surprised at, how often people forget this. Pot of Avarice, on the other hand, I used to like this card, and then I actually started to see how nutty this card was, and I started to get sick of it, because I got sick of people playing Pot of Avarice, and just how, they just put back 5 cards knowing, they'd be able to draw 2 cards. You just knew how much advantage they were gaining off of that 1 card. Even at 1, I despise it so much, because I just feel like, even if it's not necessarily going to give you, even if it puts you in a position where you could draw cards that are not going to help you, it's just kind of the type of effect that it has. It's just too powerful overall. Moving on to Blackluster Soldier as the next card I want to talk about. Obviously, Blackluster Soldier on for the beginning. BLS is a card, where a lot of people feel this way. It's just so good, and it should never have come off the list in the first place. I do not know what Konami was thinking when they made this decision. My personal opinion is that when it comes to BLS, it's just a card that it's not just so good because of its effect, it's also because of how damn splashable it is. Something to consider is the fact that when Chaos Sorcerer was at 3, you didn't have decks try to make such an effort to splash his card in their deck. BLS is a completely different story. BLS is being splashed in decks with... the fact that BLS was being used in Rabbit kind of says it all, in my opinion. The fact that people were forcing it in Inzectors, where your only lights were Veiler, that says something. Just the sheer power of this card, nuts. Need I say more? Next card, Card Destruction. I I think a lot of people can. I think a lot of people kind of know where I'm going with this. It's not just the fact that it's Dark World's ultimate win card. It's also the fact that card destruction is, other than Dark World, it's used in completely degenerate decks. I'm not a fan of cards like that. Even if Dark World utilizes it the best, I don't like that a deck like Gishki FTK, or just any kind of deck of that nature, any solitaire deck can utilize this card to some strong effect. No. And the last ban card I want to talk about is Gateway of the Six. Something I've wanted to make clear is that no matter what decks I've played and what decks I like, that's not going to stop me from making what I think are legitimate, changes, predicting changes that really do need to happen. In the case of Six Sams, I use the deck at regionals, but I'm still not a huge fan of the deck, and ultimately, I've known for a long time, I've wanted this for a long time, I want Gateway gone, just so Six Sams don't have that card that's just like, it's a win more card, but it does so much, my god. Almost every single game you draw, if you open with that card, I guarantee you about 80% of the time you're going to win with it. I know this because I tested this myself. So, those are the 5 cards I think should be banned. Maybe there are other cards that I'm not thinking about, but I think these are the cards that deserve a ban more than any others. Now let's move on to the limited cards. Now, this is where we kind of get into discussion of the two biggest decks and the 2 decks that need to be dealt with the most on the ban list. Atlantean Mermails and Windups. I dislike both of these decks. I originally liked Atlantean Mermail. Why? Because I liked the fact that it was a water deck. I liked water decks. I liked that there was a new water deck that I could really make use out of. But the deck is just too freaking powerful. The main reasons, though, for that are obviously 2 cards in particular, and I think these 2 cards are the ones that need to be hit. And for those of you who are going to be ignorant and say there's absolutely no way Konami's going to hit anything, here's something we need to consider. The fact that nothing from the new set, almost nothing, is being used in the OCG. Konami's not going to be losing any profitability if they hit these cards because the deck will still be viable. I don't understand how people aren't getting that, So, yeah. So that's why I feel that the first 2 cards, Atlantean Dragoons, Genex Undine. I think Dragoons needs no discussion. Undine, people kind of realize, if you don't hit Dragoons, the next best thing is Undine, because that's what gives them the consistent, easy access to Dragoons, and on top of that, it's, they have pretty easy access to it through Abyss Spike, so, something to consider. Now, let's see, what was I getting? And now moving on to windups, Magician factor to 1. Not much else I need to say. I'd be perfectly fine with Shark at 1, but I feel like I feel like Magician might be the better play. I think that's the better decision, only for the fact that Magician is the card that lets the deck gain advantage. You might be able to do a fair amount with 1 Magician, but you only need 1 Shark for the OTK. Magician might, to an extent, suck if Shark's not a card, but I feel like if you just build the deck differently, you could just find other ways to capitalize off Magician. Maybe playing Call of the Haunted or some card like that, I don't know. But it's something to think about. I just feel like I'd rather take Magician out of the equation, knowing that's where the deck gains all of its major advantage. If they have Shark, if they still have Shark at 3, their plays are still very much limited. Excuse me 1 sec. So, yeah, by that logic, I definitely say Magician to 1. Factory, it's really a no-brainer, because Factory is just Black Whirlwind on freaking steroids. So, go figure. I don't even know what else to say. The next 3 cards are cards that I'm really... one of these cards I've seen people... these are the last 3. I've seen people talking about this... Oh, no, sorry, there's 4 left, excuse me. I'm just going to go through it without wasting any more time. Rekindling. I want this card to be hit because I want this card to be hit before Lobbles become ridiculous. before Hidden Arsenal 7 comes out. I don't expect Konami to do it necessarily, but I think they could do it without a problem. Without outright killing the deck, or at least put the card to 2. But the card obviously needs to go to 1. Next up, One Day of Peace. I despise this card. Out of all the cards on this list, out of all the limited cards, this is the card I despise the most. Why? Because this deck only promotes degenerate decks. Degenerate solitaire decks like Chainburn, Exodia, Final Countdown. The fact of the matter is, when this card was printed, it basically said these cards become much more viable, these decks. I'm not okay with that. This card should be at 1. End of story. Next up, Rescue Rabbit. I'll refer you to Mega Capital G's video on this one. Why this card is just not fair. I had a discussion recently with people who tried to explain to me why Dino Rabbit is a balanced deck. It's not. I don't care how underwhelming the deck might be compared to what it once was. The deck is still nuts. The deck still has nutty plays. The deck is still because the Volzars are Xyz monsters, are still powerful. And if you're going to argue that the deck sucks because it would suck if Macrocosmos wasn't a card, just don't even play this game. Just don't even play. I don't even want to talk to people like that. I'm done. No. I can't. It bugs me when people say stuff like that. It really does. Nonetheless, as much as I wish this card, if the Xyz monsters you could bring out weren't so powerful, I could easily be okay with this being at 2. But I can't, just because of all the shenanigans that you can do with the Xyz monsters, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. The last card that I stupidly forgot to write down, but will be in the description nonetheless, is Evigishki Mind Augus. People have been talking about the Gishki FTK deck that's not popular, but it's kind of starting to grow, especially among people around Duelist Grounds. Alter Reality Games are learning about it, It's really dumb deck, but it's an interesting deck that I don't really want to talk much about, because if I do, I'll probably get sick. So I'm just going to leave it as this. Evigishki Mind Augus, if you limit the card, you basically kill the deck. The deck shouldn't exist because it's a degenerate deck, end of story. So that's it for my discussion on the cards I think should be banned and limited. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a thumbs up if you at least like the vid, or at least respect my opinion, pretty much. Part 2, which I'm probably going to do right after this, but I may not post immediately at the same time, is going to be the cards I think should be semi-limited and completely unrestricted. So, see you guys next time.